Hello friends, welcome to S Kumar IS. So we were studying the series of political science and international relations, and in particular we were studying the Western political thought. Till the last class we completed Thomas Hobbes, which is called the first modern thinker. And why he is called the first modern thinker, I very well explained in the class. Still, if you have some doubt, some questions, please ask in the comment box. I will personally answer them. Today we are going to study the father of liberalism, जॉन लॉक. सो विदाउट मच डिले आज की कथा को स्टार्ट करते हैं. सो जॉन लॉक is called the father of liberalism. Before studying about John Locke, let us first have some basic idea what is liberalism itself. Like we say that America is a liberal country. America has liberal constitution. Why America is called liberal country? Because America has fundamental rights, natural rights in its constitution. The concept of secularism, toleration, and we can trace back these concepts in Machiavelli. Machiavelli first time he separated the church and the state. Thomas Hobbes, the state sovereignty, Leviathan concept we studied in the last class. So all these concepts we'll see that as the scholars are giving their theories, now these concepts are being inculcated into the constitutions of the countries. The countries are getting the ideas of these scholars, and that's how these scholars are very important to study. Because if we want to study the modern nation state, like how India functions, how US functions, so these constitutions didn't just come out of the blue, that one night some good intelligent people they sit together and they will just start, okay, there should be fundamental rights, there should be preamble. No, it did not happen like that. Everything evolved historically, and when we study the ideas of these scholars, we can trace back that how these constitutions has developed. So when we say that America is a liberal country, who are the founding fathers of these concepts? Whose ideas got influenced? Whose ideas influenced the American Constitution? Because of them, America is today a liberal country. So John Locke, we can we can say that the most the most defining influence of any scholar, if we trace back, is the John Locke. Liberalism basically is ideology of middle class or bourgeois class in the historical context. Why? Because in the medieval times, which are also called the Dark Ages, the church used to be the supreme. Like church used to be the most influencing factor in the decision making, because the king was controlled by the church. So feudalism was the test of the time. And after the concept of Machiavelli's separation of power, and all these concepts are developing time by time. And we know that after industrial revolution, IR, there are new innovations, and people want to do trade. Why? Because there are machines, and there is a lot of production. So new capitalist class is emerging. Now this capitalist class want to do trade, it want to maximize its profit, but the governance and polity structure is not supporting it. Why? Because it is controlled by the king and the church. And the capitalist class, they want more and more freedom. I think no need to explain why. Because we can see today also in India, if we see that there should be privatization. So private company can flourish when there is complete freedom to them, market, freedom of operation and everything. Like we see in Indian context that the time of commanding heights and the planning commission, it is known that the private entities were not flourishing during those times because government was controlling that. Similarly, when the industrial revolution was happening in the Europe, that time it was kind of fight between the old order and new order, old versus new. The old order was represented by king, and church and feudalism. The new forces were the industrialists, the capitalist class, the scientist class. So there was a constant struggle between these two. And in these, I'm just giving this context so that you can understand the ideas of that particular scholar, why he is speaking whatever he is speaking. That's very much important to understand. So liberalism basically represent right of the people. Right of the people is just a code word. Actually it is the right of the capitalist class, because these scholars, they are just favoring the capitalist class. Never study a scholar just blindly. Just try to understand that what is the context, whatever he is saying, why he is saying. That is very much important to understand. So liberal scholars, they talk about rights of people, right to do the maximum trade, freedom in every sphere of life, then rule of law. Why? Because if there is no law, there is arbitrariness in the polity and in the governance structure. Business cannot be done very efficiently. You just keep this you just see everything in the background of this thing, that these scholars are bourgeois scholars. They are giving their theories just to kind of benefit the industrialist class. So business flourish when there is proper law and order. In fact, when we see EODB, ease of doing business index, there is proper marks are given for law and order. So law and order is very very necessary. Then we can see that representative governments. Why? Because if king is there and church is influencing, feudal class is there, then there cannot be trade. If king is there and it is controlled by the church and feudal class, then there cannot be freedom. So there should be representative government. So representative government means the government, the people, those who are having money, they can definitely influence the people and they can come into the power. Then right to property. Why? Because if property right is not guaranteed, trade cannot be done. Just suppose that you just start an industry and state can take away that your industry, that land. If state can arbitrarily confiscate that thing, then there is no meaning of starting a business. So there must be right of property. If you acquire some property, you must have that right. The government should be representative. It should come in power with the consent of the people, and rule of law should be there. There should be no arbitrary power exercised by the state, and rights of the people should be strengthened. Okay, so that is the concept of liberalism. Liberalism means all these things basically. Now let us study the time of John Locke, because I already told you, just to understand a scholar, you must understand in what context he is giving his theory. So let's see. The time of John Locke was the time of glorious revolution in the history of United Kingdom. In British history, the time of glorious revolution of 1688 was shift of power from king to the parliament, and not a single drop of blood was shed. It was a completely peaceful transfer of power. So now you just imagine that what kind of theory John Locke will build, what kind of human nature he will say. Because if we see it in the context of Thomas Hobbes, Thomas Hobbes took very pessimistic view of human nature. He says that man is selfish, man is lacking the reason, the state of nature is nasty, brutish, poor, short. But because his time was time of Puritan revolution, where there was bloodshed. But John Locke is living in a completely different time and space. So John Locke says that the human nature is quite optimistic and balanced. He takes very optimistic view that human nature is not bad, like Hobbes. Hobbes took very very pessimistic view of human nature due to Puritan revolution. So this is just a brief overview. Like John Locke's theory will be built upon these concepts. Now, before explaining things further, just few clarifications. Small terms are there. For example, liberalism and capitalism. Sometimes it is says, it is understood that liberalism and capitalism, they are one and same. Well, of course, both of them are related. That liberalism, just now I explained you that how it is, helping capitalism. Liberalism is definitely helping capitalism, but nevertheless, they are not exactly the same. How? Because liberalism represents liberty, rights, democracy, all these things. In normal context, yes, definitely it supports capitalism, but capitalism is also having its different forms. For example, fascist state that also supported capitalism. For example, Mussolini, he was a great admirer of capitalism, but we cannot say his state was a liberal state. So we must know these nuances and the overlapping areas, that we should not use the term, we should not replace the terms. We should understand them very well. Capitalism may be state controlled. For example, China, present Chinese model. It is a capitalist model, but nevertheless, we cannot say that China is a liberal state. China is not a liberal state, but it can be capitalist state. Then there can be democratic capitalism also. That definitely comes into the liberal sphere. If there is democratic capitalism, then it is a it's also, we can say that liberal, and liberalism is also overlapping with this. So fascism, no need to explain that people didn't have any freedom and all. So it is not a liberal state. So just one more concept: freedom versus liberty. For most of the scholars, freedom and liberty, they are one and the same, and they use also interchangeably. But Karl Marx and Hannah Arendt, they are the two scholars which they take liberty and freedom quite differently. Hannah Arendt gives its own meaning to every term: liberty, natality. I already explained you in the previous classes the brief overview of the Western political scholars. We also studied in that. Karl Marx sort of differentiate between the two, just because liberty is more or less associated with the liberalism. And Karl Marx was enemy of liberalism. So that's why Karl Marx says man should be free. He supports freedom but not liberty. Liberty was a kind of bad word for Karl Marx. So it was just a footnote, so that we do not confuse when we are studying all the scholars. In Indian context, if we see Article 19, it gives freedom of press, and it gives a lot of freedoms: freedom of association, movement, profession. So this is definitely an article which we can say that makes Indian constitution quite liberal. Then the concept of due process of law, it is definitely supporting liberalism. For example, American constitution. In Indian constitution, it is not explicitly mentioned, but after Maneka Gandhi case, we can say that due process of law is essential part of India also, Indian constitution also. And then procedure established by law, like it is the British system. So like we can, these are few examples that how liberal constitutions, liberal polities, liberal states look like. And then Locke as a thinker, if we see, now let's come to John Locke in specific. So John Locke can be said the scholar of possessive individualism. How? Because John Locke, like Thomas Hobbes, still gives lot of power to state. Leviathan we studied, he gives absolute power to the state, that state can take away almost everything except your life. But John Locke is not saying that. John Locke belongs to very peaceful times, and he is sort of, we can say, hardcore supporter of the liberals or the capitalist class. So his theory will be more or less tilted toward the individuals. That's why John Locke is called father of liberalism, not Thomas Hobbes. Okay. Possessive individualism means that he is against the welfare state. John Locke wants that individual should be given the maximum possible freedom. The individual, like absolute right to property, and the state should play the role of only night watchman. He says that state should be night watchman state. That means state should just bring the order, law and order, so that people can maximize their freedom, people can maximize their trade, people can maximize their profit. So basically state is just a necessary evil, nothing else. He supports absolute right to property, that people must have absolute right to property. Absolute means state cannot take it away. Then he is quite utilitarian, like he's supporting state just because it has utility for the individual. Otherwise state has no meaning. John Locke does not want to delegate any power to the state. Just for the sake of individual, he is delegating some power to the state. That's why he is called possessive individualist scholar. He is against welfare state because he says that own effort should matter and there is no obligation to give back. Okay, John Locke is supporting Ambanis and Adanis. Okay, if you can understand in that way, that there is no responsibility. If you earn something by your effort, you have no responsibility to give back. The individual has all the right to achieve the maximum profit, and no taxation. There should be minimum taxation. There should not be, you cannot say that you are earning so much, you should spend it for the welfare of the people. No, that concept John Locke is not giving. That's why he's called the scholar of possessive individualism. Possessive means, we say na, we use these things. He is quite possessive. It means he don't want to leave that thing. Individualism means the individual person he is giving that power. So that's why he is called the scholar of possessive individualism. And this is the philosophy of capitalism basically. If we see after these theories, this is the time East India Company is influencing, its policies in India. And slowly what happens in India we can see. So actually studying these scholars give us a quite insights into the history. So this is the time East India Company is all the wars. You just see the time of John Locke, 1688. So it may be good from British point of view, but these theories, how they affect, how they play out in the Indian context, that's quite bad. And no need to explain how. 1688, 17th, 18th century, these are the times of maximum exploitation by East India Company in the Indian subcontinent and other parts of the world. And no need to explain why. Because these scholars are supporting possessive individualism. Maximum profit should be exploited. And that's why Gandhi said that utilitarian state is a satanic civilization. It's instrument of satanic civilization. And John Locke also follows the tradition of social contract. Thomas Hobbes also follows the tradition of social contract. But unlike Hobbes, who did not support the natural rights, John Locke supports natural rights and due process of law. Natural rights means their origin is in the reason of the man. You do not require a state to give you the rights. Okay, so that's how it is. The John Locke is different from Thomas Hobbes. To study him further, let's study the work of John Locke. His first work was Two Treatises of Civil Government. So this was the book of John Locke, Two Treatises of the Civil Government. So what he says is that the root of this book is to criticize Filmer. Filmer is a scholar and his book was of Patriarcha. It was the name of his book. So John Locke see, these scholars, if they want to build their own theory, so they have to reject who is saying opposite to them. So at the time of John Locke, Filmer was the leading scholar and his theory was completely opposite to John Locke. How it was opposite? Because Filmer was critic of the social contract. Filmer favors the absolute state, hereditary theory of property, and Filmer says that state is family of God and kings are the sons of God, and that's why there should be absolute authority and power to the king and there should not be any social contract. So this theory was prevalent, and now if John Locke has to build his own theory supporting the bourgeois class, capitalist class, definitely he has to kill his theory. So this was the complete subject matter. The first treatise, it completely deals with one single subject कि भाई इस बंदे ने जो बोला है ना उसको बर्बाद करना है, इसको एकदम गलत साबित करना है. दैट्स इट. दैट वाज द ओनली जॉब ऑफ जॉन लॉक इन द फर्स्ट बुक टू ट्रीटाइज ऑफ सिविल गवर्नमेंट. Locke says on Filmer's idea that like Aristotle, He rejects the idea of family, that state is not a family, and king is not the father. He does not give that status. Like Aristotle rejects the claim of Plato. Similarly, John Locke rejects the claim of Filmer in Patriarcha. So he says that citizens are adult, they are not children, and king is not the father. And then he gives another argument. Even if we accept that God created Adam and it was very, very long ago, so now we cannot ascertain that who is the actual legal heir of that property. So this is completely broken, and we cannot, believe in the divine commandments, and we cannot accept the theory of two swords. We cannot be, dependent of divine rights. He basically says that. So there should not be kings, there should not be absolute right. It should be delegated to the people. It's up to the people to decide who will be their king. So these are the theories, and these are the theories which are leading to later on democratic setup. So these scholars are quite influencing in that. We can see that how these theories are influencing the polity of the countries. So in the second book of John Locke, second treatise of John Locke is Theory of Government. He says that theory of government and theory of commonwealth. Hobbes gave theory of state, which I already explained in the last class. So to build the theory of government, now social contract comes, that how John Locke builds its social contract theory. I already told you, he is also the scholar of social contract. So we know that for social contract, first human nature has to be defined, then the state of nature, and then the theory is built. So John Locke says that human nature is passions and reasons balanced. In human nature, passion and reason is quite balanced. And I already explained why, because it belongs to the time of glorious revolution. Hobbes was quite pessimistic due to Puritan revolution. So he says that human beings, they knows their enlightened self-interest. This is a keyword. You should remember it to use it as it is in the answer writing. So human reason is quite, enlightened, and a human being knows its enlightened self-interest. And protecting others' interest ultimately protects our own interest. He says that if a man do good to others, it will do to himself. It will be good for himself. Like if I do not do violence with my neighbor, so there will be very peaceful society, and in that society I can do more trade. So if I do good to others, then it will be good to me. So that's how the human being is quite reasonable, and its passions are quite controlled. That's why he knows his enlightened self-interest. He's enlightened and far-righted. He takes far-sighted view of the human nature, and this reason teaches human being not to harm others in life, liberty, health, and possession. These four words you should remember and cram them. That John Locke says that human being is having reason, and due to the reason, he knows his enlightened self-interest, and he has far-sighted view of human nature, and due to this far-sighted nature, human being does not harm the other human being in life, liberty, health, and possession. Life, liberty, health, and possession. Okay, so this is the human nature. Rest of the part of John Locke's theory, like how it develops, the social contract we know. First, human nature is explained, then state of nature, then its interaction, and complete theory will be built. So we just studied John Locke. Rest of the part of John Locke we will study it tomorrow in the next class. And till now we just studied about basic liberalism, the John Locke's idea, his time, and if you have some doubt in all these things, please ask the question in the comment box. I will personally answer them. And thank you so much for coming into the classroom. If you find these videos useful, please like them, please subscribe the channel and spread it like a wildfire. And till next class, stay connected and work hard. Thank you so much.